All right, folks, welcome back to another edition of yours and my favorite class. All right, quick announcements. 4 weeks from today, I think, is December 4th. So you're going to be ready to ship your shiny new apps. And I haven't figured out the whole presentation part of it, but it's probably going to be X number of people divided by however much time we have, and you're probably going to have like 2 minutes to show off your thing, and maybe that's too much, maybe it's not enough, we'll see. And I don't know, I'm going to try and have some guest folks show up to, I don't know.
Investors?
I don't know about investors, maybe, we'll see. If I could head over to the business school, or, there's some folks I can email. Yeah. Investors. All right, that's a good one. I'll keep that in mind. Let's see. Any questions, comments, concerns with anything? Okay, so everything. I saw most of you in office hours to do like the milestone checkoff. Some of you I did not. And then there's some folks who I'm not seeing who I still haven't seen like what their final project will be, so that's kind of scary. But we'll get that figured out. Let's see, other things. So today we're going to talk about setting up, I called it setting up shop, so setting up your iPhone business. So it seems like a lot of folks are, they're looking to launch their own little thing after this class, or, so we're going to, I'm no lawyer, I'm no MBA, but I've been through this process a few times, so I'll try and share what I can in terms of, well, just some of the business entities and some of the things that you need to do. And then, if you have any questions, feel free to ask as usual, and I'll do what I can. I want to go over Tabbar controllers. We'll see. I think with this one, we're just going to look through a bunch of code, because there should be plenty of samples out there in terms of how to do this. And so, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that part goes. Yes?
Is there supposed to be a PowerPoint?
There should be a PowerPoint. That would be nice. Thanks. All right. We didn't miss much. Announcements. Your app ship in 4 weeks. We all heard that. All right. So in terms of setting up a business, one of the things that you have to worry about is what sort of entity are you going to set up. So by that I mean, is this thing going to be a corporation? Is it going to be an LLC? Is it going to be a sole proprietorship, a partnership, a limited partnership, a general partnership? We're not going to get into all those, but you have a lot of choices when setting up a business, and your choice has some very the ramifications vary. So then we'll talk a little bit about some of the paperwork that you need to do in order to set up a business, and in particular we'll sort of focus on California and the city of Davis, because that's where we all happen to be. It'll be pretty similar from different states and different cities and different counties, and then we'll just look at a few of the places and things that relevant to signing up for the iPhone developer program, and sort of what you need to do and where to look. And some of the things to think about when you're doing this stuff to sort of try to make it as easy as possible on yourselves. So, all right. So in terms of business entities, so I rattled some of these off, and basically we're just going to hang on this slide for a while, because I don't think I have slides for all those different ones now. When you set up a business, you need to have some sort of representation of that business, and you have a choice when doing that. So sort of the most, I guess the easiest one is a sole proprietorship, and that's, I guess it's pretty descriptive. It's a sole proprietorship, so it's just you, and you might have employees and all that sort of stuff. But what what this means is that it is just you, so all of that fat cash, that mad money that's coming in, it's all yours, right? And then you get to do with it as you please. When it's when it's tax time, the earnings from this type of business just sort of, they travel directly. They don't go through some other entity or anything. They go directly to you, and they'll show up on your tax forms. Of course, so you get 100% of everything good, but you also get 100% of everything bad. So if someone comes into your office and slips on a banana peel while you're showing them an iPhone app or whatever it is, then they get to sue you. And even though it happened at maybe, let's say, your place of business, they can come after your house, for example, your car, your whatever it takes to pay them off. So, you are directly liable for everything good and, well, for everything bad. So, in terms of setting things up, the sole proprietorship is the easiest, and we'll look at how that's sort of set up in a little bit. The next one is a partnership. So partnership is pretty much just like the sole proprietorship, except now there are more of you. So now you have to split all that mad money you're making, but you also share. You share in the liabilities and bad things that might happen. The thing is, so say, what's today? Friday. All right, it's a Friday afternoon, and your business partner wants to start the weekend early. So they head over to, lunchtime, they start drinking it up, and, they have some sort of business meeting, and they're drinking it up, and then after the meeting, they're heading back to the office. And on the way back to the office, they crash into something and destroy some things. But it turns out that your business partner doesn't really have any cash, but you have all sorts of cash. Well, guess what? You're liable as well in that situation. So basically, they'll go after whoever has the money in the partnership to get whatever they need to get to fix things. So at the same time, there are more folks, and maybe again, it just depends on what sort of thing you're setting up. Maybe the partnership is the way to go, but keep in mind that the liability thing is an issue. So what's interesting is that about all these business entities, it all comes down to liability. And if something bad happens, who's responsible? And as far as the top two are concerned, pretty much you're responsible, assuming that everything's being done legally. So next up, we have corporations. So we've all heard of corporations. We interact with them all the time. What's interesting about a corporation is pretty much its own living entity. So much like you have like a social security number, corporations have something similar. And actually the other businesses also have something similar. But so what's nice about the corporation is that again, it's sort of its own living entity, and the way you own a corporation is you own shares. You have shareholders that own shares of the corporation, and the biggest thing that the corporation gives you is what's referred to as limited liability protection. So what happens now is if in the course of doing business legally, you as an officer of the corporation, maybe you're the CEO or the president, whatever it is. If the company's loses all sorts of money, well, it's the corporation that's on the hook for it, not you being one of the officers or one of the shareholders. So this is where this idea of limited liability comes in. So if the corporation gets sued, for example, because some sort of copyright or trademark infringement or something, well, it's the corporation, not you. So as an example, so right now, I haven't been sued, but I'm being threatened because of an application I have where a company is claiming copyright infringement and trademark infringement and all this sort of stuff. And I made the decision with my current company to have it set up as a sole proprietorship because it just seemed like the easiest thing, and I felt that the risk was low in terms of me doing anything where someone slips on a banana peel type of thing, or where I felt that I was doing anything illegal or bad where I would actually illegal doesn't matter, no matter what entity you have. If you're doing something illegal, then it doesn't matter, you're liable, assuming you get caught or whatever. But I guess for me, I was thinking that my risk of being sued or anything like that would be pretty minimal. So that's how I'm set up. And now as you head into the iPhone world, because of, it's important to think about trademark issues and copyright issues and make sure that you're, if you don't really know much about that stuff, hit up Wikipedia and just kind of start reading a little bit, and you'll get a feeling very quickly for what, if you're, you want to make a game and that game has a name, not only is it the same game as some particular company, but it has a name that's similar to that company's game's name. And in addition to that, it also is visually very similar. You're starting to cross some lines, potentially. So again, I'm no lawyer, so those are things you'd have to keep in mind. So corporation, it's a bit more involved in terms of setting up, and we'll see. We can discuss that a little bit more shortly. Next up is an LLC, and an LLC, that stands for Limited Liability Company. You'll hear some folks, they'll call it a limited liability corporation, but that's sort of, I don't know, it's almost like a double negative or something, or double positive, I don't know what it is. But so limited liability company, it gives you the limited liability protection that a corporation gives you, but it's just, in terms of paperwork and some of the things you have to do, it's a little simpler to manage. So with something like the corporation, and I didn't mention this, but so I mentioned with sole proprietorship, when it comes to tax time, the money you make, the money you lose, that goes onto your taxes. And then the same thing with the partnership, except the losses and gains are split equally, or whatever percentage you've set up with your partner. And again, that goes directly to your taxes. And then with the corporation, because it's its own entity, it files its own taxes. And you may have heard of, at least a while back, it sort of was in the news a bit more, but this idea of this double taxation, where what happens is a corporation gets taxed on its earnings, and then the corporation pays out dividends to its shareholders. But now, those shareholders see those dividends as income, so that income then gets taxed again. So in essence, the money that the corporation made was taxed twice, once at the corporation level, a second time at the shareholder level. So there was talk of getting rid of that, and I don't know, it seems to have gone away. But so when it comes to limited liability companies, you get to elect how that company is taxed. So whether it's taxed as a partnership, meaning that the earnings and losses will simply flow on through and appear on your tax forms, just like sole proprietorship and partnership, or you can elect to be taxed as a corporation. So the plus and minuses of doing all that, we need to get some of the MBA folks in here to really get into all that, and some legal folks to tell us why one way is better than another or whatnot. But so what it comes down to is that the LLC is a bit more flexible, and it's a nice way for someone who wants to have a sole proprietorship to get that limited liability protection that it offers. So corporations usually have shareholders. LLCs can also have, they're essentially shareholders, but instead of calling them shareholders, they're members, and each member has some particular stake, some percentage in the company. So it's funny because I've actually, looking at this list, I've gone through all of these at one point or another, and I'd say, I guess with the exception of the corporation, I pretty much set all the other ones up by myself, or when I was in a partnership with my business partner. And it's not rocket science. The corporation we could have done on our own as well, but we thought, all right, let's make sure, because the area that we were getting into, we knew for sure was it was an area where we were dealing with charities and with individuals and the money that transfers between them, and then there were other things that, just all sorts of things that got scary legally. So we wanted to make sure, okay, you want to make sure that you have a legal structure in place that is sound, because what can happen is, so say you set up a corporation, but maybe you don't do it properly, or you don't behave the way a corporation should behave. So maybe you treat it more like a sole proprietorship. Well, at some point, some judge somewhere could decide that, you know what? Yeah, you may have been set up as a corporation, but really this thing's just been a front for you to, it's been more of an alias for you to really do these other devious things, or these things that you shouldn't be doing. So yeah, those are sort of the general business entities. The main thing it comes down to is limited liability protection, and then there's some other tax issues and whatnot. Oftentimes, and I wouldn't really even worry about this, but oftentimes folks will set up a corporation because it's easier to deal with investors. You just give them some shares or something. I don't know. I think most folks aren't going to get investors, especially VC funding. So, I wouldn't really worry about it. I'd go with whatever easiest thing there is. And if some investor wants to invest, or say some VC folks show up and they're super excited about what you're doing, guess what? They'll help you set up some sort of structure that's very favorable to them, probably. So, yes?
So iPhone apps, do they require any sort of entity, or can you just be a single developer?
So in terms of selling iPhone applications, you don't actually have to be set up as a business. You can actually apply as an individual. And this is something one of the reasons not to sign up as an individual, what's that?
Tax.
Tax?
Tax.
Well, I mean, if you're set up, either way, you're going to get taxed at some point. And actually, as far as taxes go, I want to pay a lot of taxes, because if I'm paying a lot of taxes, it means I'm making a lot of money. So, of course, I want to minimize the taxes I pay. But anyway, basically, the main place where signing up as a business is beneficial, and I don't think this has changed, but when you sign up as an individual, I don't think that you can invite other people to join your team quite the way, in the same way you can if you're set up as a business. So as a business, I can, say, we all start working together or something, or you have employees, for example, and they need access to do the device provisioning stuff that some of you have been doing. I don't think that is available, and so having this team thing isn't necessarily available. If it doesn't matter, it's just you, then the other option is to you sign up as a sole proprietor, and at some point in the future you can always change your entity, and then you file new paperwork with Apple and do all that stuff. But I do have some friends that had gone through this, and they didn't realize that they couldn't have other folks join their teams, and then when your application appears in the store, it appears under your name, which maybe you want, but maybe you'd rather have it appear under something else. So the best way to have it appear under something else is to set up a business. So have folks seen some of this before, like in other classes or anything? Not so much, sort of. Okay. So in terms of paperwork, basically, so some of these apply to all of them. Some of them only apply to a few of them. So I'll just say, we'll start off with this fictitious business name statement. So you can set up a sole proprietorship with pretty much doing nothing. Like you just say, today I'm a sole proprietor. So let me start making stuff. And what happens there, though, is when you do that, what happens is the name of your business is your name. any sort of taxes and things associated with that are associated with your Social Security number. And what happens is if you want to do business as a different name other than yours, you need to file, again, talking about sole proprietor, you need to file a fictitious business name statement, and they're also called DBAs, doing business as. And usually this happens, at least here in Yolo County. You file this, you head over to Woodland, and you fill out the paperwork, and you pay the $15, or maybe now it's $30, and they pretty much stamp something and hand you a few copies of this official-looking thing that doesn't look that official, except it has a red stamp on it. And so they'll give you that, and some of those copies you keep for yourself. One of those copies, what you normally have to do is you need to contact a local newspaper and fax this over to them, and basically they'll take care of this fictitious business name stuff, which is so once you've filed the paperwork with the county, you then need to let the world know that you are now doing business as so-and-so person or so-and-so thing. And so I forget what the requirement is. I think it's 1 week or 2 weeks where you need to have some sort of little tiny ad that appears in the newspaper. It seems kind of silly to me, but it still happens. And so you have to do that, and that's probably like one of the most expensive parts of this process as far as sole proprietorships are concerned. But don't take the first one that shows up. You could pay like $30 and be done with it, and they'll file it, and then they'll send paperwork back to the county and make sure that you're all legit. So there's that aspect of it. Other entities, so partnerships, I believe, have to file this fictitious business name statement because they need some sort of name, and there's two of them, and I guess it's one name. I don't know what the deal is, but I'm pretty sure that they have to. Corporations generally do not have to file the fictitious business name statement unless the name of the corporation is Corporation XYZ, but they're on the web as myspecialplace.com. I don't know. So if they have a particular, their company is incorporated under a certain name, and then they're basically, customers see them as some other name. In that case, they would have to do this DBA thing. And then LLCs, I believe it's the same thing. Although when I had mine set up, I remember filing the paperwork, but that may have been because I just didn't know what I was doing back then. And at the end of all this, I'll give you guys a link where, so California has this business portal that's actually quite nice compared to some other states. So you have a lot of access to information. Next up is the employer ID number. And I'll say that all the entities will need something like this. It's also referred to as a federal tax identification number. So when you're filing taxes, you would use this EID or this EIN number instead of your Social Security number, for example. And this is also, it's called the employer ID number because if you have employees, then you need to have this number where, again, for tax purposes, they can track various things that are going on and stuff. So so these first top two things are a must if, again, so if you're a sole proprietor and you plan on having employees, then you definitely need this EIN. If you're a sole proprietor and aren't going to have any employees, and you're going to have, the name that is whatever your name is, then pretty much you're fine. Otherwise, in order to get a bank account in the name of your business, you need to have, when you show up at the bank, you need to give them this fictitious business name statement, one of the copies of the things that you were handed, and you also need to give them this this EIN. And once you give them that stuff, then they'll open up a bank account that is the business bank account. So in general, and I put this at the very bottom, you want to be very careful in terms of how money moves around between your business and sort of yourself. And that becomes especially important if you decide to set up a corporation. And one of the things that you can do that will very quickly sort of end your corporation status is to just sort of throw everything in one pile. And this is my money, this is the corporation's money, it's all the same. Well, if it's all the same, you're not a corporation, because then you're you. And so you could lose that limited liability protection. So, and also just in terms of keeping track of things, it's just easier to know, okay, this is the business money, this is my stuff, and when I need money from the business, well, I'll write myself a check, or I'll, transfer it somewhere where there's some sort of paper trail or some sort of electronic trail where you can track these things. So, okay, so in terms of paperwork, so I mentioned that it's more involved with corporations and LLCs. To set up a sole proprietorship and partnership, you can pretty much just do those top two bullets and you're done. And in terms of a sole proprietorship, you could even ignore those top two. As far as a partnership goes, I forget what it was called, but basically there's some sort of agreement that you set up that's this partnership agreement. And I don't remember, if you don't put one of these things together, there's sort of this default one that just applies. And I believe what the default says is that, so say you're in a partnership and something happens to one of the partners, say one of the partners passes away, well, because of that event, by default, then I believe that the business will just go away. In terms of what this paperwork says. So generally people, when they partner up, they'll grab this original thing and they'll amend it in some ways and saying, okay, if XYZ happens to one of us, then this is what goes on. If this other stuff happens, then this is what goes on. So basically that gets me to something important, which I haven't said yet, which is that in general, you want to have everything in writing. So especially if you're interacting with other individuals, and even if it's your best friend ever, you want to have things in writing, and it's for your protection, it's for their protection. And if any question ever arises where someone says, hey, I want to do this thing instead, you say, well, look, we signed this thing, this contract, and it says that we can't do that, or that's not right. So you have a document to always go back to and say, well, look, here's how it is. And then if you two decide, or however many of you there are, decide that you want to do something different collectively, then since you guys made the agreement, then you guys can change the agreement and have it updated and do whatever. So be careful with this stuff. But we'll say, I guess, I don't know if I'm lucky or not, but as far as through my business stuff so far, unfortunately I've lost one friend in the process. So it does happen, and luckily from my perspective, we had everything written, so there was nothing much to worry about on my part. So just be careful. It's the reality is people change when you have business dealings, things change. So keep that in mind, everything in writing. So as far as corporations and LLCs, they both have to file what's called articles of incorporation. And actually, I'm not sure, if you elect to be taxed as a partnership, I think you still have to file these things, but again, something to look into if LLC is the way you want to go. But basically, the articles just sort of say, okay, well, and we'll focus on corporations. So pretty much they say, well, here's how many shares the company has. Here's how we, do various things like elect folks, and here's the president. Here's who the vice president is. So basically it just sort of sets up the general structure. And what you end up doing with that stuff is you have to file that with the Secretary of State, and they put that on file. And actually, if you go to some websites here in California, you can see, look up some corporation and you can get a little bit of information about it there. So next up, so actually, I guess the other thing, so you can set up, I set up an LLC by myself, and that wasn't that big of a deal. Again, corporation, I think I could have done it myself. There are plenty of websites actually for like $100, $200, $300. You pretty much give them the information that they ask for, and then they take care of the rest. So if your time is worth $200 or $300, which today I'd say mine is definitely worth I'd spend that and get it done. Then go for it. If you don't have the cash to do it, then you got to sit and research it a bit and take care of it yourself. And really, it's not that big a deal. It's not rocket science because their business is all around us. So there must be some clear ways of setting them up. There was something else I was going to say that I just forgot. But the other option. So generally, when it comes to setting up corporations and LLCs, people usually turn to lawyers, and I'll say at a minimum to set up a corporation, if you're lucky, probably $1,500 if you find a lawyer to take care of it. Which to me, I think, if they're doing some special things for you, okay, maybe. In general, what they're doing is they grab a bunch of boilerplate stuff, they stick your name and locations X, Y, and Z, and a few other things, and they're done. So I think it's a little ridiculous that's why like these online companies can do this stuff, right? You pay $100, $200, and they'll take care of what needs to be taken care of. The other thing with corporations and LLCs here in California, I think if you look it up, I think the wording is something like, they have the words for the privilege of doing business in California, basically. So you have to pay $800 a year. It may have changed. I think it's still $800 for the privilege of having a corporation or an LLC here in California. So oftentimes what people will do is they'll try to incorporate in another, or they will incorporate in another state where those fees are less. But you then start getting into other weird things like, well, just because you're incorporated in some other state doesn't mean you don't have to pay taxes here in California, because you might have established, I think the term they use, I think, is nexus, which is like, you have an office here, you do stuff here, so you must be here, so you must pay taxes. Again, you start getting into weird stuff that isn't rocket science, but starts getting more complicated because you have to read through it and figure out how it all works. And ideally, you have the resources or someone working with you that knows about this stuff. So, if you haven't been hanging out over at the business school, you should just go hang out over there. I don't know, did anyone go to like that Big Bang thing? Yeah, well, that's all right. It's still going on. I would look into it if you have these dreams of, I don't know, being the next Apple or whatever it might be. It doesn't hurt to go and meet those folks over there and get to know them. So that's next up, as far as the city of Davis is concerned, you need to get a little business license. It's something like $10 a year plus, I don't know, it's like $14, $15 a year plus some percentage of the money that comes into your operation. And I asked them, I went in there, I was like, do I really need to get a business license? Because I've had one for the past 9-10 years here in Davis, I think. And this last time I went in, I was like, do I really need one? Because you guys don't do anything. I said this to them, like, what do you guys do for me? I don't understand. And they didn't have an answer. They pretty much said, well, we don't do anything. It's just the law, and you have to do it. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. So, pay your whatever it is you have to pay, and it's a drop in the bucket at the end of the day, but you need it to be legal and whatnot. So, you know what? I've been saying stuff and I've been forgetting to move through. So, employee identification number, very easy. Go to this website, and you can click on that link. Do you need one? And it's kind of purplish. You can see it there somewhere. Basically, it takes 5 minutes to fill out the paperwork, so just do it and get one, and don't worry about it anymore. As far as the business licenses for Davis, this is the website, City of Davis. Go there and just see what you need to fill out. The paper is 5 lines of stuff, your address and name. and pay the cash is basically what it is. So, all right, any questions about some of this stuff, why you would want to do one versus the other, any of that kind of stuff? Okay. So, assuming you've decided to set up some sort of business entity, you then want to sign up with Apple, and I think most folks have probably seen this page by now. There's a little link in the top 2 lines there, sign up, where you can sign up as a registered, actually as a free registered iPhone developer. Now that I read that, I think it's pretty much through that same place where you can choose. I haven't been through the process in a while, so I don't remember for sure, but definitely you go here, eventually you'll find some link where you can pay Apple $99, and basically that will then allow you to do what the university program is allowing us to do, which is getting the necessary certificates and things to deploy your applications to a device. So that's important for testing, and it's very important for actually, in order to actually deploy to the App Store, you need to, pay this $99 and become this official registered developer. And so once you do that, at some point you also you need to set up iTunes Connect. So if you haven't heard of iTunes Connect, this is pretty much where you manage your applications. When you're ready to deploy an app, and I think for folks who want to actually deploy on the 4th, I don't think you guys have access to this. I think either Ken or I would have to go in and actually do the things that are necessary, but I personally would rather have you go through it because it's it's just kind of annoying. I don't know, like the interface, being Apple and all, I'd expect like a much nicer experience, but in terms of the number of folks using this, I guess it's very limited, so they don't care that much, although there have been improvements. But basically, so you see up on the right there's this manage your applications. That's pretty much where you would submit applications and see that it's still, it's been 4 weeks and it's still in review, or that sort of stuff. And also another important one is sort of these sales and trends and financial reports, so you can see, how much cash am I making today? And usually you'll get a daily report where you can log in here and look to see how many millions did you sell the previous day. So one that's very, very important when you're first setting up is this one that I just highlighted here. So it's contracts, tax, and banking information. So pretty much once you've set up your business, if you kind of hit all of those things on that list, you'll have to have a bank account, you'll have been all set up, and you'll be able to fill this out properly. So you want to fill out this portion because this is how Apple pays you. So this one's very important. And then you need to kind of sign off on these little contracts and this tax stuff just to get you all 100% ready to go. And you want to do this stuff sooner than later because Apple takes a while to do things. So I don't know how long it's taking right now for people to be approved as official developers. I think when I signed up, I felt it was like 2 to 4 weeks. So I can, now there's tons of people trying to do stuff. So maybe I don't know, maybe they've staffed up. I really don't know. But it could take a while. So if you're thinking, oh, you know what, on December the 4th, I'm deploying this, under my own name and to the store and all this kind of stuff. It's possible, but like pretty much today and tomorrow and Sunday, you need to figure out what kind of business thing you want to set up, file the paperwork on Monday, wait for all that stuff to kind of do what it needs to do, sign up with Apple, so it could take a while. So you want to do that stuff sooner than later. And when I was doing it, I was trying to do it in parallel as I was developing, and not deploying to my device. I had all this sort of stuff kind of going in parallel. Yes?
If you just want to be a sole proprietorship and get away without putting any paperwork, can you still deploy to the App Store?
So yeah, if you plan on shipping an app to the App Store, this is how it's, and you're not putting it up there for free. Actually, even if you do put it up there for free, like some of the contracts and stuff, I think you'll still have to take care of. But if you just sign up as an individual, you can give them your, whatever your bank account info is, and all that stuff's there. Again, I think, and it just the other issue is if you sign up as an individual and then later want to become a company of some sort. From what I've heard is it's difficult to get your application transferred. So, it's under your name, but now you'd really want to be under whatever company name. And so that seems to be problematic. Maybe they fixed it by now. It's been an issue for folks who, some company acquires some individual's products, and then it's just been sort of a hassle to kind of get that going. So there's still elements of this that you need to do even as a sole proprietor. All right, as far as the, so this is the California Business Portal. If you just look up California Business, this thing will come up. And I really just wanted to put this up so I could have Arnold on there. Which, by the way, he signed my diploma, so it's kind of funny. I was trying to graduate real quick so I could make sure that he was still in office. So I'd have that. I guess it was a hard way to go to get his autograph, but there could have been easier, less expensive ways probably. So yeah, actually, when you guys graduate, so he signs, he's a regent, whatever president, regents of the California or whatever it is. So anyway, go here. Under Hot Topics, that top one they have, setting up a business in California. If you go through that, it'll talk about the different business entities and sort of what you need to do to set things up for all of them. And it's, plain English, nothing too fancy. So that's a good place to look for more information if you're thinking about setting up your own business here in California. Has anyone heard of folks like, when they set up corporations, they set them up in Delaware or other states or something? Well, people will do that. So different states have different laws and different benefits to incorporating in their state versus your home state. And a lot of folks incorporate in Delaware because they sort of have this separate court system that basically just makes taking care of disputes a little faster. And Delaware is considered very pro-business, so in terms of the tax rate that they charge you, it's pretty low compared to other states. States like Nevada, they've been trying to get in on some of Delaware's action over the last few years, and they're trying to make it favorable for businesses to go there, and they'll have various incentives and whatnot. But again, from what I've seen, just because you're incorporated in some particular state doesn't mean you get to not pay taxes in the state that you're in. Not something to really worry too much about as you get started. I'd say keep it simple, and if sole proprietorship, at a minimum, get something that has a name that's different than yours, and then at least it becomes a little easier to take care of some things. On just kind of a random note, so we're sort of, for these 5 weeks and hopefully, beyond for some of you that are interested in going this route, this is sort of the, the entrepreneur side of things. And, this part of the class is, we're the entrepreneurs for the next few weeks. And I don't know, for me, as I've gone through some of these things, there have been various books that I've read, and I looked on my shelf today, and this one showed up. I was like, oh, so I read this one a while back, The Nudist on the Late Shift, and Other True Tales of Silicon Valley. So I think this book was published 1999, and so it pretty much talks about sort of the things that were going on in the web up to 1999, and just the various businesses and things, and the different characters. And I think there was one story, again, I read this one years ago, but one of the ones was something about, so when you have a business, you need to finance that business somehow, so you need money. And this one particular individual, I think, was growing marijuana and selling it so that he could do his legitimate business or something. I don't know. People try to get creative. I say get creative, but do it in legal ways. But, that's your choice as an American citizen to do whatever you want to do and pay the consequences if necessary. So this one was entertaining. Another one, so this one is 2007. Similar stories from the previous book, but just a little bit different. So Founders at Work. So if you've ever wondered, how did TiVo come to be, you get a little blurb in there, or maybe PayPal. Why is it that PayPal survived when, all these other companies that were also doing similar things at the time didn't survive? I think, if I remember right, it came down to fraud detection. So PayPal was good at figuring out that, fraudulent things were going on, whereas some of these other companies had difficulties doing that, and so they were losing money and didn't make it. And so, yeah, I recommend these just stories. It's good to see, what have some other folks done, what were the things that they were going through, and it just sort of helps get you, helps you step back. It's like when we're developing these things, we're like right up in here. And I guess the camera can't see me doing that, but that's okay. Basically, we're all in the details, so we need to step back and kind of looking through some of this stuff. I think will help you, look at the bigger picture of what's going on in entrepreneurship, and maybe just some of the ideas of some of the stuff that people were doing, or things that people were doing. So. That's what I have for that. So it's 5:30. Okay, any questions? Yes, Derek.
Can you post the slideshow online?
Yes, I believe I have access to my website again, my UC website. So, yeah, I need to put links to a lot of stuff. So I will. I'll post this to the news group for sure tonight, since it seems like somebody wants it. So. Any other questions? Yes, Sonny.
Do you need to set up a corporation or anything if you're going to just open source your project?
So that's an interesting question, because I'm not so the first answer is no, you wouldn't need to, because there are a lot of folks who just I know folks here at the university who you basically write some code and you say, I want to GPL it, so you throw the GPL on it and you're done. Or you choose whatever other license you want to choose. So there's no need to do that. I think, and I haven't looked at this very much, but there are a lot of, there are companies out there, and I don't know the details behind, say, MySQL, for example, but that, so the database thing, that's been open sourced for forever and ever and ever. And then a year or so ago, I think 2 years ago, I don't know, fairly recently, I believe Sun acquired them. So, so you can open source stuff. Doesn't mean you can't make money off of it. There are other ways of, doing stuff. So you don't necessarily need to, but I'd say for you guys and what you're thinking about doing, because I know what you're working on, you don't need to. Just put your names on there and choose whatever license you want to choose. People prefer very permissive licenses like the MIT or FreeBSD. They prefer, at least people out in the real world that want to use, basically people want to use the stuff that you've taken a lot of time to build, and they don't want to have to pay for it. If you want certain people to have to pay for it or do certain things with it, then choose the appropriate license to do so. But the more permissive you make it, the easier it is for some folks to adopt it. But you could definitely set yours up as GPL, and that would prevent some other folks from coming along, taking your work, and sort of developing something closed source. They could still do that, of course, but that's illegal. It's illegal for them to do that, and if they get caught, they'll have lots of cash to pay, because the Free Software Foundation will go after them on your behalf, hopefully. Yeah. Okay. Next up, so I wanted to talk about Tabbar controllers today. There were some things I wanted to review that I didn't get a chance to review. So basically, I think the easiest thing to do is to look at some of my code where I've used them before and just kind of just see how some things are set up. And the thing is, there's tons of examples in Apple's code and my code online. We're reaching that point where, well, I guess Tabbar controllers are not that big a deal, but as a general statement, we're reaching that point where folks are heading in different directions, and I don't necessarily have time to cover everything in terms of the directions that people are headed. You have to do what you do in the real world, which is, open Google and start searching and figuring things out. So let's see. So let's take a look at Tabbar controllers. So first off, so we saw navigation controllers, and we saw that basically navigation controllers were essentially this stack-based approach to to seeing other things that sort of get pushed on as some sort of hierarchy. And this navigation controller would sort of manage the pushing and popping and the navigation of moving through your stuff. Tabbar controllers, it's another type of this high-level container type controller where it's more random access. It's pretty much, it's like an array where you can just index into any one of the views or the view controllers that you've set up with it. So the idea is the same, where you've got this high-level controller, and then you have your individual controllers that you just have to somehow plug them into it. So we'll take a look at this application here, which I guess I haven't built in a while, but so this is my little Scrabble tool that I think we may have seen like the first day if we look through code then, or at some other point. And basically, I use a Tabbar controller to manage which screen, what you see on which of the different screens. So let's take a quick look. So yeah, last time I ran this was Hello Davis, first day of class, I think it was. So, right, you enter some stuff in there, and you hit search, and it makes words based on those letters. So if you look down below, I've got a bunch of different options here. So is that pretty visible? I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So, this first screen is sort of this hello input screen, or hello input, the letter input. You type in your stuff, and then you submit, and it does its search. And when I submit, what I then do is I switch over to this other view. In this case, it's the Scrabble score. So given these words, what's the score? And we've got them separated based on these different sections: 14 points, 13 points. And the small lowercase letters, they represent the blank letter. So whenever the blank was used, I'm showing that with this lowercase letter. So maybe, so some folks like to look at the words based on length. So I have a different view controller for that. Maybe someone wants to look at them alphabetically. So, there's something for that. And then I threw up a little tab here that's like, some information about the company, and come visit us and ask us stuff and whatnot. So so these are Tabbar controllers. Nothing too fancy, although they are nice. They're used quite a bit on the iPhone, so maybe they are a bit fancy. So let's take a look at how I set this up. So first off, so let me do the usual preferences switch thing here real quick. Yes. I don't know, there's something about this color I like that makes it easier on my eyes. It's sort of like those yellow notepads, like you stare at them all the time and it's like soft. I don't know if it really is, but I like it, so I use it. So if we look over in my resources, we'll see that I have an alpha view, a letter input view, Scrabble score view. So basically I have a bunch of different views, and then I've got the main window. So let's look at the letter input view, just to look at that one. So if we look at it, what does it have? Pretty much it's just a view. All right, so I've got some images, some stuff in there, nothing that we haven't seen before. So what you'll see with all of those, basically they're all, I've set them all up as views. I tend to, if it was a view controller, I would have said view controller, but it doesn't have any of those in there. So these are just the visuals. And if we go into main window, this is where I put my Tabbar controller. And in terms of setup, from here, it's very similar to what we did with the navigation controller, and how so when we set up the navigation controller, we had, instead of a Tabbar controller, it was a navigation controller, and then we had some sort of references to controllers, to actual controllers, the controllers that it would manage, and so as far as this thing goes, you set up your Tabbar controller, or you grab it from the usual place here, and what you can do then is for each of the different tabs, you can place a controller. And the thing what I don't remember, let's see. So I have a controller here, letter input view. Let's see what happens if we just try and throw in a controller. So let's say we grab this guy and we throw him in here. So he didn't go in the hierarchy. I'll just put him up here. Okay, so now if we look, this other thing appeared over here in the lower left corner. And that'll just, and it has this Tabbar item thing associated with it, which the Tabbar item basically lets you choose some things for it. So the name, and if you want to have some particular image, let's use, I don't know, you don't want to use that one. So you have some specific requirements about the images, and you can look that up to see what you need to do. But so if we'll, use the about one, so we'll stick a little hand on there. So pretty much, once you throw the Tabbar controller, you can then just bring in these controllers, and we work with them as usual, where and let's look at one that was added previously. So, right, I've given it a title just to see it there, and then I've set up a nib name for it, because that's where it's going to be. That's the view it's going to load. Again, this part is pretty much what we did with the navigation controller, right? You bring in these controllers, and by setting up their nib name, you'll see, like when you look at them in here, it'll tell you that it's loaded from some particular place. So let's see the support one, actually. Let's see this one. And we double click and see that. And in here, that one's, I guess, pretty boring. It's just table view. And is that one already loaded somewhere? So basically, we've got our references to our different controllers in here and the views that they're going to load. So, usual app delegate type stuff. In this case, right, I've got my Tabbar controller, and I've set up an outlet to it, and I've got that thing there. So, in terms of launch, I don't want to show that code there. Dope. Hide that. Okay. Don't use that. It'll mess up my analytics or something. Right, we always end up with this view, add some sort of subview. In this case, we're taking our Tabbar controller and grabbing its view, and then from there, it's kind of going to take care of all of the other magical things that it needs to take care of. So let's see. Let's check out this guy. So the letter input view controller, again, it's just a controller like any other that we've done. So the fact that we sort of made the connection from the Tabbar to this controller right here by just throwing these guys in there. I don't know if this might not be the best way of doing it, but it's a way. So let's see. There's another application which I want to show you guys, which is let's see. Do we have an about? So there's an application called Simple RSS, which is partly what your homework was based on, because I had to do some work on it at some point for some company. And actually, let's see. Let's see if it brings it right up. I don't know if this was the one or not, but well, we'll see. The company is Willow Tree Consulting that made it, and they have it on Google Code up there somewhere. And if you find it, let me know. So the reason I want to show you this app is because it does a number of things that a lot of you probably want to do in your app. So in this case, I've sort of messed with it and changed some things with it, but basically, so table view type stuff, and you can see sort of how to edit the tables and things from it. But the other thing is, right, it's got these different tab bar things going on. And what's different about their approach is that they pretty much, very minimal use of interface builder, and pretty much everything is happening inside the code. So, I want to show you this because it might be easier to see, all right, well, how do I do this just from the code? And let's see. Where did you go? Well, let's see what they have in their main window, first of all, if they have anything in. So they have two nibs. Let's see what's in there. All right, so in their window, basically they're saying that their window is loaded from somewhere else. So we don't see that. At least we haven't in some of the stuff we've been doing. And then this thing, pretty much nothing. So hardly anything going on in their nib files. So that means most of the magic must be happening in other places. So let's see. So this is one of the view controllers, feeds view controller. Okay. So, all right, so in the app delegate, kind of our usual starting place, let's see, we still have this guy running. So, what do we see about the application? When it first launches, this is the view we have. So, if we click, so this has some of the behavior I was hoping to see in yours, right? Does that look familiar? Anyone? So yeah, definitely. The idea for this was inspired by the work I had to do on this thing. So, so we see that we have a navigation controller inside of this Tabbar controller, and that's something very important to think about. So sometimes when people are working with these, they'll sort of try to switch it around, and they'll try to shove the Tabbar controller inside the navigation controller, and you're looking for, well, it's just pain. So the idea is you have the Tabbar controller is sort of the big overarching container, and then if you have like a navigation controller, well, that just happens to be one of the Tabbar, one of the items inside there. And then if your navigation controller has a bunch of other things associated with it, well, then those go inside there. So, let's look at their code, and we'll see that, the first few things that are going on, right? So they're creating some sort of, about view controller, some sort of settings view controller, and just keeping track of that. And then they're creating a number of UI navigation controllers. So it's just UI navigation controller alloc, and then init. Right, you pass it your root view controller, so that first one that that shows up, and so they just do that for each of these other, using these other different controllers. So they set up some controllers up above. They allocated them, and then they allocated a bunch of navigation controllers. And when they allocate those navigation controllers, they're assigning some particular root view controller. Next up is now, well, we've got all these separate things set up. We've put navigation controllers around some other controllers. Next up, we've got our Tabbar controller. So now, we need to shove stuff into there. So this stuff, they're just playing around with some colors and some of the options to tweak some of the look and feel of things. But if we scroll farther down, basically, so they've allocated this Tabbar controller. So here's our little Tabbar controller. And now, Tabbar controllers are just this array of all of our different view controllers. So that's it, right? NS array with objects, and then they put in each of these navigation controllers that were allocated up above, and add it to the view, and you're done. So remember, when you're thinking about controllers and the different screens, usually each screen is its own controller of some sort. So the same thing happens with the Tabbar controller. When you select one of the options, that is some other screen. So chances are, it's some other screen, so it has some other controller associated with it, and that can be whatever you want. Some other navigation controller, or just some other controller. So that's, yeah, I know a few folks have asked about some Tabbar stuff, so hopefully looking at this particular example will make things easier for you. I'm not sure if if the books, like I don't know what books folks are reading, but some are reading the one I suggested, and I don't remember if that one covered, sort of this mixing of Tabbar and navigation controllers, because that tends to be confusing for folks. So, and also, like with Interface Builder, it gets kind of weird if you're still not sure of how that works, like trying to do the Tabbar controller and then setting up the other ones and then including them all in there can get a little strange. But so that's it for today. That's all I've got, unless you have some questions. Otherwise, we're still trying to figure out like the barbecue thing. I don't know, some new rule happened, so we got to like find other ways of getting what we need to get. I'll explain it off camera later. So, all right, any concerns, wishes next week? Anything you want me to cover? I'm thinking of doing OpenGL stuff next week, but I might do some other stuff. What's that? Collisions? I don't know if I'll be doing any physics type stuff, but okay, so that's a wish. Someone wished for AI stuff. 2 people wishing for that. Yeah. What's that? OpenGL? Really? I didn't know the desire was so great for that, but okay. Okay, well, that's like a lot of the class, so okay.
I'll bring a super Bible.
Yeah. All right, so that's what I'll plan on then. Is next week is do OpenGL. The thing is, so folks are taking, doing the graphics class, covering material, 10 weeks worth of stuff, and so we're going to have basically 2 lectures to try to like wrap our heads around what needs to be done with that, or how to use it. So we'll see what we can do. Yes.
So we're still going to do maybe a section on core data real quick.
Okay, so yes, there have been a few requests on some core data type stuff. So if you've seen me in office hours, the comment I've made is I haven't used core data, so that makes it harder for me to teach right now. So I just need some time to kind of read through it and do some stuff. But I know Colin's presentation was pretty fast, so I'll probably do another, a slower version of some of the basics with it. So, okay, and then there's some file persistence type stuff I want to cover that I haven't gotten a chance to cover yet. So we'll see how that goes. I don't think too many people are doing OpenGL stuff for their applications, so I'll probably push towards the stuff that people are using sooner or need to use sooner. So we'll see. We'll figure it out. So, all right. If you need to see me for some sort of something, stick around. I guess it's sort of discussion time. So I think I might have a phone meeting, so I don't know. I might have to be on the line, but okay, thank you.